Well, hello, patrons. Welcome to our after show from our Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark episode. Hopefully you've listened to that. If not, listen after this. We're not going to give too many spoilers on this episode. But while Danny was literally reading me these scary stories, I thought of a few scary situations that have happened to me. I'll call them situations because they may be open for interpretation.
Okay.
I've got a few, but I referenced one in the episode today that I think I'll tell today, and then maybe I'll save some.
Okay.
Because we're going to have a lot of spooky content coming up for later after shows. All right. So Danny read the story. What was it called? High beams?
High beams.
High beams, right? So the story where the young woman's driving home and some truck is like following her and turning on their like high beams, their bright lights, and then back off and then back on. And it follows her to her driveway and she jumps out of the car and thinks the person in the truck is trying to attack her. And it turns out he's trying to warn her about a guy in the back seat with a knife who was obviously going to try to hurt her. So that's the story. Sorry if I spoiled it, but you've probably heard it other places too. It's an urban legend. And Danny read it way better than I just summarized. But okay. So when I was a teenager, I worked down at the beach. I grew up near Lake Michigan.
Right.
So not like the beach we have now, but, where I grew up in Indiana. And in the summer, our particular beach was highly visited. People came from Chicago. I lived on Indiana side, but people came from Chicago and like nearby. And, like in Indiana, there's not a lot of like beach to go to. So we had staff that would kind of just work at the park. Right? Work at the beach. And I was one of those people. Now, why they I was 16 because I was driving. I would open by myself at like 6 a.m.
What?
And by open, that would mean like unlock the gate to the park, hang out in this little by myself. And 16, I did not have a cell phone.
Yeah, right.
I don't even think we had a phone in the like little building, little booth, but we had like walkie-talkies. And I think when other people were there working, we could communicate with them. I don't know who I could communicate with that early. Honestly, I probably had no way to like contact anyone if there was an emergency, but I would go in. So I'd leave my house like 5:30, maybe a 10-minute drive.
You were getting up at 5:30 to work even at 16. I want you just to let that sit in for a second.
I need to sit with that for a moment. I have always been an early riser, and I thought maybe it dates back to having that job because that was my first job. I started working there when I was like 14. My parents would take me to work and I wouldn't open by myself at age 14. But by the time I was 16, I'd been there a few years. And I mean, we had cash. Like it was like people would pay to park and So most days it really was, I would barely see anybody that early. And then by like 8 or 9, it would start to get busy. But if I did see people, it was usually someone coming to get on their boat. It was regulars, basically. Or someone coming to take a walk and they'd walk by and be like, hey, how you doing? So I never really felt scared until I was like an adult looking back. And I was like, okay, that was kind of scary because I'm not a very big person. So anyway, there's that. And I had no like communication or weapons or anything on me.
Could have snatched you up.
And I don't think we had surveillance. It's just been gone. Still gone.
So scary.
In Lake Michigan somewhere, who knows. So, but most of the time everything was just fine and no issues whatsoever. So I get up and I'm running kind of late. And there was a bridge being fixed by the lake that summer, so it wasn't open. So normally that would have been the shorter way to get to work, but it was closed for the summer. But I knew because we had an event over the weekend that they had opened it for the event and that it wasn't closed back up yet. And I was running late. Running late to the job where literally no one would know if I was late, although I do think we clocked in. So maybe.
Oh, yeah.
I think there was a time clock in the booth. So I'm like, oh my God, I can't be late. Whatever. So jump in my car. My first car was a Dodge Shadow.
Yeah.
Like a little sedan. It was my mom's car, so she got a new one. I got her old one. So I'm driving along. I'm pretty sure like I had a CD player with the detachable face at this point, jamming to whatever. And I notice a car following me.
Ooh.
And it's early. Yeah. So it's like unusual. It's not a big town. Like it's not typical. But there are people who go to work at that time and stuff. And I just remember noticing that it was an older car. Like, this was the late 90s. So it was probably like a 1970s car, but not like well kept up, like old, loud.
Yeah.
all the things. And I had like a moment where felt like I recognized it. And so, of course, I'm, how we are. I'm like, oh, I must know them from the beach or something. Like they must drive through because I literally looked at cars all day. But I'm driving and I'm a good 7 or 8 miles from my job. So it's not like I live right next to it. So I'm driving. Every turn I make, car turns. To the point that I'm like, should I just drive to the police station? So I'm finally getting a little worked up about it. I'm trying to see who it is. I can see, I think it's a man, but I can't like get a good look at him. He's got like the sun visor down, but it's 5:30 in the morning or whatever. So I keep driving. He keeps following me. I'm debating going to the police station. And then I had a thought. People think the bridge is closed. So I'm going to go that way because there's signs that say it's closed, but I know it's open, which looking back now is kind of risky. What
stupid.
If it wasn't?
I know.
What if they had like gotten to work? But I'm like, yay, I'm so smart. So I drive right by the police station, keep on going, keep on trucking. And right where like the signs are saying it's closed, the car follows me.
Oh, no.
So now I'm starting to freak out.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm almost to work. Nobody's there. I just drove by the police station. So I'm like, I guess I could circle back, having all these thoughts. And it's like getting closer. I mean, literally, I spotted it when I turned out of my driveway at home. And this car is still behind me.
Creepy.
So I'm like, now I'm just totally freaked out. Obviously, no cell phone, no nothing, all by myself. So I pull into like the work parking lot and just sit there for a second. I just sit in my car and I'm like, okay. Like, and the car, like I sit and just look down and then I'm like, okay, did he pull in after me? And I look and I don't see him. So of course I'm like looking around the parking lot. I don't see him. So that freaks me out more.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
where did he go?
Where did he go? Only a couple seconds passed when I didn't have eyes on him. I'm looking. I sit in my car for like 20 minutes, not sure what to do. Totally freaked out. Finally, I see a police car enter the park. And he kind of pulls up like, hey, how you doing? And I roll down my window. Yeah. And I was like, hey, there was just like kind of like a creepy car. I was like, oh, did you see where it went or whatever? I was like, no, like it hasn't been here for like 20 minutes. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to stay in the park for a while. Let me know if you need anything, blah, blah, blah. So I get out of the car, start working. Don't see the guy again. Don't see the car. Start working. Don't think anything of it. Like I was like freaked out, but then people start showing up for work and then the sun comes out and day goes on and I'm just like, it could have just been a drunk person, like not knowing where they're going, which is scary. Yeah. But I'm like, obviously whoever it was left, but now they know where I work. I think they might know where I live. Like I was just like freaked out. So I mentioned I had worked there for a few years and I only worked there in the summer because it was only open during the summer. It's freaking cold in the winter and the beach is not open. So some other people I work with come in and I was still freaked out but hadn't said much. And they're like, oh, hey, it was like July. And they're like, oh, yeah. Someone's joking around about the date. They're like, oh, it's, today's July 8th or whatever. And someone's like, oh, no, isn't it the 7th? They're like, no, it's the 8th. You know why I remember? Because this is the day last year where that old man ran into that wall and died.
Stop.
And I immediately remembered who he was. And I swear to God, that was who was following me that morning. Stop. Remember how I said he looked familiar? It was this old guy who would drive through.
No.
And he was in a car that I think looked like the one that was following me. He was probably, I don't know, in his 70s, but he was always drunk. We kind of thought he was funny because we were like, oh, there's the drunk guy. He would drive really slow. He would inappropriately like hit on the girls that were working. And we'd be like, oh, God, that guy, And it was almost like he had nothing better to do. So he would just drive through and be like, hey, beautifuls, da-da-da-da-da, and keep driving. Well, that day, the year before, he was going faster than normal or whatever, and there was a curve you could take out that was lined with like a rock wall. He slammed into it and died. Like drunk. And it had been a year ago that day.
That's so scary.
Isn't that scary?
I don't like that.
So, like, there's so many different ways you can go with it, like you were saying with the scary stories to tell in the dark. Is it totally unrelated? Was it just some creepy person following me who then was like, oh, this is a public place. I'm not going to kidnap and murder her after all. Or was it a ghost? Or did my like subconscious brain make it up? because somewhere I knew it was the day he had passed away. Did I dream about it and it just carried over into my day when I was awake heading to work? Yeah. But it was like as soon as they said that, I was like, that is who I saw. That's who I saw this morning.
That would be a good scary story to tell in the dark.
I know.
Story.
But I'm telling you in the daylight. So
I know. And I'm going to think about it.
You're going to think about it. And there's more. That's just one.
I know. I have a few creepy ones. My mom has tons because my mom, listen, we're a weird family, all of us. Before I say this, y'all need to know that. My mom, very matter of fact, one time when The Sixth Sense came out.
Oh, yeah.
She was like, oh, yeah, I mean, I've always seen dead people. And I'm like,
huh?
What? Like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Like, I knew she believed in ghosts and aliens. She believes in all the supernatural things. Okay. I knew that. And I've heard she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, even when I was a kid, she's like, we'd go past the stop sign and I'd be like, oh, why is that man standing there? And people would be like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So she said she just kind of learned to ignore it, which is interesting. I never asked her about this, and now she's probably at the point where she can't talk about it much, like logically.
Age and logic,
but,
yeah.
She was an ER nurse for like a bunch of decades. And I'm just in her office. Why I hated going to her office. It was right next to the door where the morgue was.
Really?
So I never did ask. And like I said, I was a scaredy cat kid. So like I didn't want to know. And I also got squeamish. So like going to emergency room.
Oh yeah.
Like was not fun. But like I never did ask her if that was a job
related.
hazard.
Right. Or if she had always, did she then see like people walking through the halls that were, yeah, I bet she did.
I'm not going to ask her.
You don't have to.
I mean, maybe I will. I don't know. It's weird. I feel like as a brain ages and the things even us right now in our 40s, which is still young, the things we distinctly remember and the things we just forget is bizarre. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense.
It's like, how do I, to my core, remember this specific thing, but not this other thing that arguably is a bigger deal or was not as long ago or whatever. Like I can remember in detail what happened each day I went into labor with my girls, like every single thing. But then there's like other things, but also I wonder too how much it relates to how much you've retold stories.
I was thinking that
because I've told them the stories of their birth X number of times that they could probably tell it themselves.
Right.
So how much of that is me saying it out loud in repetition?
Yeah.
And how much is like I actually am remembering those days?
Yeah. It's interesting. I remember hearing Malcolm Gladwell speak about this, either in a book or in a podcast episode or like a TED Talk or something. He's talking about how memories work and like how is your memory reliable? Because it's your interpretation of events that sometimes changes. So that happens in marriage a lot, like where you tell a story and then your husband will be like, no, that's not what happened. Right. And it's like, you could swear on the blood of your life that yes, it did. And he could swear on the blood of his life but it's because your memory is not exactly right. Like nobody's memory is exactly perfect.
It keepsakes it in a different way.
Yeah, and I don't remember all the science and all the blah, blah, blah he shared. Right. I love Malcolm Gladwell.
Well, that's why they say like eyewitness accounts of things aren't always reliable. Because you'll have 5 people who saw the same thing and they'll have a different version of it. So like even in court, sometimes it doesn't hold up. And it's not that people are lying. Sometimes people are lying.
Well, right.
But like it's that their interpretation in their brain is this way.
Yeah.
It's so wild.
It's wild.
We're wild humans.
Anyways.
Well, that was creepy. Don't worry. There's more where that came from, listeners. Thank you for being our patrons. We love you guys. We hope you love the scary stories. Yay. And we hope you're looking forward to our spooky month-ish, 6 weeks-ish, whatever we're going to end up making.
Not all in a row.
I think we've got a few to break them up. Yeah. So either way. Well, thank you guys so much. We love you so much, patrons. And we'll see you next time. Bye.